Hi, have you ever run an A/B test or an experiment? We do them all the time, but in B2B marketing there's a few little traps that can catch you because the data can tell you lies and you'll form wrong conclusions. I'll show you how to avoid those wrong conclusions and to use tests to optimise all of your marketing on today's show. Well, the first thing I want to address is why even do tests and why take them through to a conclusion of trying to be statistically significant. First, the tests. We can get, as I'll show you today, really big improvements or really big drop-offs by making the smallest changes. That's why you test, because you can make actually quite big improvements in your conversion optimization with making small changes. That's why. Why do we need statistical significance? Surely a directional result, this one's evidently better than the other one, isn't that good enough? Today I'm going to show you why that's not the case, and that's how the data lies. Well, the first conclusion is make your tests simple. Complex tests will confuse you and you'll draw wrong conclusions. Make your tests simple. Second one is make your tests big. Don't test little changes, test big changes. Make the little changes later. Third one is isolate the source. That is, don't let your different tests or your A and B landing pages, if that's what you're testing, receive their data from different sources. Or if you think source is an important difference, then actually test for source, not the landing page. Do the same with time. Either isolate time of day, time of week, time of month, time of year, or test for it. And finally, be patient. Resist early guesses. You will be wrong. I'll share with you the results of our tests and show you the pre-launch campaign that all this fuss is about at the very end. Let me show you those tests now. I'm not going to bore you with too much of the background to the test that we're actually trying to find a result for, but I will tell you that at the end because it's actually quite exciting, but it's not meaningful for the conclusions I want to try and reach with you today. What I will do though is show you the tests as they played out for us because the journey itself is quite telling. Well, when we first set this up, we didn't have time to set a test up. We didn't have time to hypothesize, to set it up. We just had to get the landing page up. And we were getting just short of a 14% conversion. Now that's not bad, but we always know that we can do better, so we invested the time. Now, the Join Fast Funnel Club is the call to action at the bottom of this page. And it's a logical call to action because the whole page is selling membership to this thing we call Fast Funnel Club. I'll explain again what Fast Funnel Club is at the end. But that's what we were selling. So it does make sense. But it's a tax, it's a cost. It's a thing that the visitor has to do rather than the benefit that they'll get as a result of doing that thing. So we changed it to get early access and discounts because that's the benefit. So what were the results? Well, at the time of today's recording, between them they're averaging, again, just short of 14%. It's 13.66, almost the same. But, and here's something really weird, 15% for the control and 12% for the test. Now, the weird thing is not that the test failed or the test actually got a lesser result. The old copy was actually winning. The weird thing is that the control was now getting 15%, not 13.6. Why? It's because we're running these at different times of year. So the original landing page that didn't have a test was started over the Christmas break, and it had different data sources. So our first conclusion is that source actually matters. But we should also add that the impact of time has let's try it again. We should also add that time does have an impact, weekends, holidays, etc. So we have to isolate for those in doing a test. So ignore for the moment the fact that our control went from 13.66 to 15%. Let's ignore that for the moment. But let me show you the results as they revealed themselves in a genuine parallel test. I'm going to do that by talking through a couple of LinkedIn posts that I did during the break. Okay, so here's what we did with the test. Well, I paused the original page, which I still conceptually think of as a 15% converter. And I created an identical copy of that with different text in the call to action. I explained what those differences were already. And the two versions of the landing page were now getting the traffic not from the original emails, but they were getting from LinkedIn posts, Twitter feeds, from referrals and from other sources. Now, at the time that we ran an interim test, or when we looked at the results, D was beating E by 12%, but it was off a pretty low traffic rate. Now D's button copy was get early access, so that's the change. So the change was beating the control by 12%. Now 12% is enough, and I was quite excited about that result. Now, the landing page platform gave us a 17% confidence in that conclusion, so we clearly couldn't trust it yet. Now, over the next 4 days, the winner was E, which is the new one, then back to D, which was the control, then back to E, the new test, and back to E again. So we'd need to see a bigger margin between D and E before we draw any conclusions. Well, how confident do we need to be? Now, do we need to get to 95% confidence? Now remember, at this stage in the test, it was starting to look clearly like D, that is our change, the selling the benefit, not the action, was going to be the winner. And if I had to make a call at that time, that was the one I would have made. Let me cycle forward now to another glance at the same data a couple of days later. And I headlined this one in LinkedIn by saying, we're just 2 phone calls away from making a big mistake. And here's why. Have a look at the data on the screen. If only 2 of the 9 new members who had been presented with version E, which is the control, had received an inopportune phone call, then the conversion rate would have dropped to 6.9% rather than 8.8%. And if only 2 of the 102 who actually got dragged away by phone calls, Hugh and his fictitious minds imagining this, when they were just about to join, had not received those calls, then version D would have been reporting 7.7%. Version D would have been the winner. In short, we were 2 phone calls away from making a disastrous decision. You have to let the data play out. Where are we now? A champion seems to be getting around 8 to 9% when it's receiving its feeds from sources other than email, and around 20% when, in fact, almost 25% when it receives its traffic from emails. Now, we're definitely getting a better result out of the champion, that is the original one that sold the action, not the benefit, from most sources. But I'd be willing to bet that email users actually like the revised copy, and that's what we should be testing next, to split out and create 2 versions of the landing page, each in turn have 2 versions. So one version is just for email, and there's an A/B test on that one, and one version for every other source, and there's an A/B test on that. Let me tie all this together with some conclusions and some actions I'd recommend for you in trying to optimise and use tests to inform your optimisation. In B2B, even in large companies, we often deal in very low volumes. And for that reason, we have to be very smart in how we shape our tests, and we have to be patient. These are my 5 key conclusions about testing and optimisation for B2B. Make your test simple. Certainly don't test multiple variables at one time, but make it something from which you can draw an absolute definitive conclusion so that you can learn from and assume that into your next test. Try and draw conclusions that are concrete, that you can leverage into other, when you're building a control, you're now actually building that control off the base of your past knowledge in the same market. Secondly, make your tests big. Think of the biggest possible changes, improvements that you can make to your control, and test for those first. Remember, it'll take a long time before you get a result. You want to make the wait worth it. Test your smaller changes later. Thirdly, isolate source, that is the source of the traffic, or test for it. You saw why in the examples. We basically need to make sure that at any point in time, A and B are receiving the traffic from the exact same source. And, of course, isolate for time of day. Quarter, month, year, anything. Make sure again that you're testing them in parallel, or if you think that time is material, test for it. Don't test time as well as different button copy, for example. And finally, be patient and resist early guesses. You saw in one of my LinkedIn posts I was starting to lean towards the new test being the winner, that is D, but in fact during the course of 4 days we saw wild swings, and finally it's played out that E, the test that was showing the conclusions, the action, not the conclusions, was actually the winner. Let me show you what all the fuss was about. What action were we actually trying to achieve? Forget the test for a moment. What's the outcome that we were trying to achieve? Let me show you now what all the fuss was about and why I'd like to invite you to do the same thing as we were inviting those who went to the landing page. You probably already know that funnel plan plays a critical role in our work with larger companies. It also plays an important role with our smaller clients, but in both cases it's very hands-on. One of our smartest consultants has to lead the planning. Now we're launching a self-serve version of Funnel Plan. That is not just for small companies who can't afford the consulting, but actually the small divisions of very large companies. You know, think of a very large company like an IBM. They can afford consulting rates with companies like us, but they've got tens of thousands of go-to-market plans that they work on every year. And that actually becomes wickedly expensive. So our self-serve funnel plan is not just for small companies, but also divisions within larger companies. And here's the cool thing. You take the plan that Funnel Plan generates, plus we hook it into the CRM and extract the actual data, and we look at the plan, the actual data, and aggregated data from all the other plans that we've captured in Funnel Plan, and that allows us to inform some really amazing automated coaching. And that coaching manifests as a weekly email that says, gee, you were expecting closure rates of only 17%, but you've actually been generating 25%. Let's look at why that's the case, and what things can you keep and what do you need to change. Or conversely, you thought the whole journey was going to take 12 weeks, it's taking 24, but when you win it takes only 8. What does that mean and what can you do about it? We can automate all of that based on the data. So we can give some really, really deep insights based on the plan plus the actual, plus all the other plans that we have in the database. The Fast Funnel Club is an early access or a pre-release list. So members who've joined Fast Funnel Club get early access to Funnel Plan at least 2 months earlier than the general market. Plus they get big discounts in return for joining Fast Funnel Club, and they get unique insights. You can join Fast Funnel Club too. It's totally free. It's completely without any obligation at funnelplan.com. Can I invite you to do that now? Go to funnelplan.com, join up to Fast Funnel Club yourself, and enjoy that early access and super huge benefits. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you got value out of that. I learned a lot. Lots more lined up for next week. Until then, may your funnel be full and always flowing. Thanks this week to Jason Thea for his amazing production. Annika Dobby, new member of the team. Welcome, Annika, for production assistance. My name's Hugh McFarlane, and it's been my absolute pleasure to script and present this week's show.